welcome to Kikao, your weekly authoritative encyclopedia on Africa's agriculture. In a short while, we'll be discussing our topic of the week. My name is Joe Agayo. Ever heard of biotechnology? Well, on this show, we'll not only tell you what biotechnology is, but we'll also find out, asking the big questions and getting the real answers on why the adoption of this modern technology in agriculture has been relatively slow on the African continent. What are the options? What are the opportunities? What are the obstacles?
Biotech is undoubtedly one of the most important disruptive agricultural technologies that can accelerate the pace of breeding, that can accelerate the pace of integrating genetic innovations in our cultivar development. There are excellent programs that are happening right now in Africa, but the progress in terms of government's political will and commitment to make these technologies reach the farming communities is really suboptimal. For example, in case of maize, outside South Africa, not many countries have moved forward in terms of adopting genetically modified crops.
As always, our panel of knowledgeable experts is ready for the week's discussion, and for that, we join Dr. Canisius Kanangire, the Executive Director of AATF.
The adoption of biotechnology in Africa is a mixed bag. A number of countries have established appropriate biosafety systems, including those that can support emerging biotechnology tools such as gene editing, while others are yet to make much progress. Moreover, some countries are unable to move biotechnology beyond initial research due to external political influences. In addition, challenges of perception around biotechnology have also contributed to reluctance by decision makers and users alike to give these tools a chance on the continent. This has put into sharp focus the role of parliamentarians and technocrats in ensuring that each country has a vibrant biosafety regulation system. And on this Kikao this week, we examine the trends of biotechnology adoption on the continent, the persistent barriers, and what can be done to unlock the untapped potential. I'm your host, Dr. Canisius Kanangire, Executive Director of AATF. And my panel today, I have the Chairman of Parliamentary Committee on Science, Technology and Innovation in Ghana, the Honorable Emmanuel Mafo, and Professor Richard Oduor of Kenyatta University in Kenya. You are welcome, sirs.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Biotechnology has improved the productivity, agricultural productivity in many countries, and yet here we are still facing quite a huge resistance to adopting them. Can agriculture in Africa be at the level of feeding African population without adopting agricultural technologies, including biotech?
As Africa, our population is increasing.
Very much increasing, yes.
And you can see it increasing day after day. And the arable land is also reducing. Now, when you find yourself under those circumstances, then you start thinking of how do we feed this number of people who are actually the numbers that are increasing. And that is why, for me, I would start thinking and motivate our people to start thinking very seriously about biotechnology, and particularly modern biotechnology to complement the conventional technologies of biotechnologies that are existing, so that we can improve food production.
So some of the controversy that we have are on biosafety when it comes to adopting technology. What is the status of biosafety adoption and use on our continent in general, and in your countries in particular?
Yeah, in biosafety in Ghana, for example, we have established a biosafety authority and we are trying to move on. Our sister country, Nigeria, for example, has even gone beyond that, and they have now started putting, these products coming from
of the farmers.
Yes, ahead, and now farmers have adopted it, and now it is on the field.
What about Kenya?
I feel that even as we talk about biosafety, and in your introduction, you really talked well about a mix of things. Now, for me, I would want to say that in Africa, and particularly Africans, we are very rigid in the way we view food. We don't explore a lot more easily with food. And therefore, if you are a Kenyan like myself, and in my village we do a lot of fish, so it becomes fish, and moving me away from fish to get to know that octopus and crabs are also just, important source of the same protein that I get from fish. I will not be very easy. So we are rigid. What does that do to us? It means it limits the availability of food and different sources from which we can actually feed on. You can see I like ugali, which is the most popular Kenyan food, but there could be cassava. But because it's not as popular, I would still feel that I'm not comfortable with cassava or yam, yet it is something that is very important or adoptable to other people. So that rigidity then means that we are creating a lot more pressure on those very, very few limited numbers of food. That's one aspect. And that means we are actually creating pressure on some of this food. Like in this country, if we don't have maize, we feel like we are going...
There is no food.
Yeah, that might not be the case in Uganda where banana. It might not be the case in Nigeria because it could be something else. And therefore, that diversity is not here. It creates pressure. As it is, it's being viewed as a foreign technology. And people don't actually understand that it's already here. And we have local people doing it here. Now, in terms of biosafety, if I just get directly to your question, my elder, is that a number of countries now have biosafety regulatory, laws. Like Kenya, for instance, we have Biosafety Act 2009, which has been there. And if you do basic mathematics, you probably see 2009 to now, we are almost talking about 13 or so, years. So the question would be, how have we benefited from this, the existence of this? And that then means we have more of other things to discuss about why are all these things here, and yet we are not making significant progress.
There are some resistance which slowed down the development of the biosafety laws, including the way we view food and the way we want to stick to the local food. I think we take a break, and when we come, we analyze all those factors.
Thank you.
Karibuni, hii ndio base ya the best local entertainment. Baby!
Tumefungulia Magic. Starting from the 7th of October, Maisha Magic Plus will be on DSTV Access and GoTV Plus.
The lives of two young girls.
My star sign is lucky. Something good will happen.
Yani mom na dad wana fight na wewe kazi yako ni zodiac signs.
Raised by secrets.
There's a lot going on at the moment in this house.
Is about to be changed forever when their true identity is uncovered in the brand new unmissable Zari. Starts 23 October, only on Maisha Magic Plus, channel 163 on DSTV Access, GoTV Plus, channel 3.
With Glovo, you've got the city at your fingertips. Hanging out na mnataka kuku fry ama nyama choma customized na ugali sosa? Order Glovo. Now enjoy. Time to shower and running out of soap? Order Glovo na uanze siku fresh. Ama simply treat family nzima with a sweet surprise. Delicious. With Glovo, unaweza track order yako minute by minute. Download Glovo, order anything you want and receive it in minutes.
Lavender. Manukato ya kutuliza. Iliyoundwa kwa mafuta halisi kutokana na umahiri wa lavender. Downy Lavender Concentrate mpya. Unipa utulivu na ujasiri siku nzima. Ijaribu sasa kwa shilingi 20 tu.
And we need 2 Royco cubes because iron gives you strength to sukuma yourself to be the best you can be.
Sukuma na Royco, kula sukuma na Royco, sukuma wiki na Royco.
Around 2.8 billion people in the world lack access to clean cooking solutions and are exposed to toxic household air pollution, which contributes to over 4 million deaths every year from non-communicable diseases and pneumonia. In Kenya alone, it contributes to over 23,000 deaths annually. Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, in partnership with Clean Cooking Association of Kenya, CCAK, UNDP, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan and other stakeholders are championing to create awareness on the role of clean cooking in the delivery of net zero targets. This Thursday, the Nation Leadership Forum will focus on the clean cooking sector in Kenya. This year's Clean Cooking Week theme, delivering of clean cooking innovations towards net zero targets. Tune in on Thursday, 12th October from 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
Welcome back to our Kikao session.
Thank you.
Why do we have a slow development in the formulation, in adoption of those biosafety laws? And what can we do to accelerate the pace so that we can use those technologies to produce more food for our people?
Well, I think for me, Kanishas, what I think we have to admit is that development of legal frameworks in their nature takes long. Naturally, you know the process of making laws is a long process in itself. But even if it wasn't very long, who are the people who make these laws? It becomes easier if the people involved in the development of, formulation of these laws are also aware of what we are talking about. To what extent have we empowered those parliamentarians to get to understand what exactly we want them to do in terms of the laws? Because we create the need as scientists, first of all, and as farmers, and as general stakeholders. You see, a farmer says, we are hungry, we don't have the right seeds. Our seeds, our plant crops are being destroyed by pests. That is the farthest the farmer really can talk, because they are not experts. Then you are left here as probably the leader to wonder, how do I help my person or my people? Then that becomes interesting.
And then scientists do
then
the work.
Scientists are here, hey, you people, are you seeing what is happening to the farmers? Then we come with these solutions and say, we have these ideas that can help you. But for us to actually implement, so we take time in the lab again, trying to make this thing work. Once it has started working, then the question is, what have you, then the regulations come in to start asking, hey, what have you guys been doing there? And is it legal?
The baton should be passed on to another type of stakeholder.
Yes.
Now, what do we do to have the right policy, the right safety laws, the right policies at country and regional level?
In many of our countries, you have the researchers and the scientists doing their own thing in the laboratories, and then policy is somewhere. And so sometimes policy and science are not talking together. And once you have a gap between science and policy, then adoption of whatever science is doing will suffer, because the scientists are just interested in developing the technologies. And they tell you, hey, we have developed this cowpea variety, we have developed this improved maize, improved rice, and so on. They produce their scientific papers, and then that's their job. They get promoted through that. Now, policymakers are faced with the challenge of how do we deal with food security, etc. So we need to, first of all, look at how science and policy are talking to each other, and how we are creating that synergy between science and bridge the gap between science and policy. That is number one. Then when we have done that, it comes to now how do we get parliamentarians or the legislature to also pass the enabling legislation to support, as it were, the adoption of these technologies. But then inherent in that will be whether there is a sense of urgency, even in parliaments, of the need to facilitate the process of adopting these biotechnologies.
Tell me, here, when you talk to people, they say there is an external political influence which slows down the adoption of all these policies and the use of biotechnology on our continent. At which extent that could be right?
If we had enough African countries who have adopted this technology and are benefiting, then it becomes easier for the neighbor
to show the
benefits. The few countries that have tried before, we remember Burkina Faso with cotton, and then the small challenge that was there in terms of the linen length was not well communicated to the end users, that was a breeding aspect that is correctable, and it's being corrected now. We took long to probably actively engage in that. And therefore the anti-technology, because they exist in whatever technology, came in first. They were shouting, saying, look, you see, this thing has failed, and you can see what is happening. And even another country like Egypt that had adopted it a bit earlier, because of that revolution that happened in Egypt, again, they retracted their steps. That is not very good for the technology and for the adoption.
How can we cushion? How can we cushion that external influence?
Well,
and then enable Africa to decide on what is useful for our continent and our population.
Food security is also a political issue. And if Africa can feed itself, I mean, just imagine if no African country is importing rice and is importing beans and whatever. Just imagine how it will affect the global economy and how it will affect African economies and in the respective countries. Because some countries import billions of dollars or spend billions of dollars in importing foodstuff.
Foodstuff that they could probably produce on their own land.
So you need to understand from, you need to understand this whole adoption of technology also as a political decision that you need to take as a continent, that not everyone will be interested in Africa becoming stable or becoming secured as far as producing your own food is concerned.
Africa needs to understand its own interests.
Exactly.
Its own need and the solutions. And then it needs to have a leadership that will take a bold decision.
Exactly.
Say, we need this, we will develop it. Let's take another break. And then when we come back, we see what the AU that Honorable you talked about and other regional institutions are doing to ease all this process. Welcome back to the Kikao session. Do you have some ideas to elaborate on, for example, why our technocrats, we have trained so many people during the 6 years of independence of our different countries. Why is it that we have not been able to give it a national color to these technologies?
Yeah, I agree with you. that we need to give it a local color. And it comes in different forms. It comes in the form of, do you have the capacity to actually develop these foods? Do you have the capacity to regulate that food? Do you have even the labs where this can be done locally? Do you have then the laws? And do you have government goodwill? All these things must come into play. And interestingly, if I give an example of Kenya, all these things are available. I actually had one of the labs that do genetic engineering. I make GMOs myself. We can cut, clone, you know, and I'm working on maize to make sure that they are drought tolerant. Now, sometimes you are left to wonder, how come if you make maize drought tolerant, or you make, rice more nutritious because it doesn't have proteins, and yet you are just picking the same proteins from beans and put it into rice, which we usually eat rice and beans anyway. Then why does it become very difficult? We are not consistent. So that inconsistency is where the problem is, and we need to debunk that and start appreciating the fact that really we need to be given the opportunity as Africans ourselves to make those decisions.
Do you think if we have an AU-led legislature on GMO, on the use of biotechnology and all kind of biotechnology in agriculture, you think that it would give us a seamless adoption of these technologies in agriculture in different countries?
Yes, I believe that at the continent level we need to have a serious discussion on the whole issue of biotechnology and food security in particular. We need to have that discussion. We need to have some level of declaration, and if I call it a quasi-legislation. And then most importantly, we need to have the conversation has to be deep to the extent that African leaders will one day sit down and say that, look, we have been talking too much. This is the time to feed our continent.
Where do you see all this in 10 years to come? We'll be still sitting here and saying, Africa has potential, and we need again to sit and accept or see how to bring technology on the front and increase productivity and feed our people. Where do you see the biotechnology adoption and use in Africa in the next 10 years? 1 second.
I think we may still find ourselves seated here in 10 years. If we don't really escalate this discussion to a point of implementation. Absolutely. We already have very good declarations. Look at Agenda 63 and the aspirations in there, particularly on the intensification, agricultural intensification. That biotechnology and new technologies are mentioned in there. But come down to even East Africa community itself, where we are supposed to harmonize these countries in. One major challenge actually now is the harmonization of biosafety laws. As we are talking right now. So even if we have a continental declaration which does not seem to be in tandem with our national and regional regulations, we will still be seated here. So my appeal would be that let's take this discussion further. Let's bring all the stakeholders. Let's break it down repeatedly like we are doing now and look forward to very rapid implementation.
There is hope and optimism, but there are conditions.
There are conditions.
Honorable,
yes.
What do you think in the next 10 years?
Well, in the next 10 years, yes, I agree with him. If we don't take action at the highest level, if scientists don't come out to participate, even in the whole discussion on adoption, if we don't deliberately work on breaking the barriers at national level, from policy to legislation and practice, then 10 years we may be sitting here, but maybe under different conditions.
So there are conditions, there are things we need to do. Researchers to do their jobs, but also the political side to do their own job, and then to bridge the gaps. And that is what we are trying to do by bringing scientists and policymakers, legislators in the same room. But more and more, we need all of us to be consistent. Actually, the medical use of GMO is one thing, but also using it for food production, I would say, is the best medicine, because a hungry person is vulnerable for every type of diseases. And if we fail to feed our people, actually, I don't know what we can call success. I wish to thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Emmanuel Mafo. I thank you very much, Professor Richard Oduor, for your contribution. I hope that we will get another opportunity to talk of all these issues on a more positive note.
Yes.
I want to thank you very much for following us, and I invite you for the next Kikao on other subjects pertaining to agricultural development on the African continent. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now to our science terminology of the week on Science Speak.
And for this week, the word is bolting. Bolting, which is also known as running to seed, is an interesting situation in which a plant produces flowers or seeds prematurely instead of a crop. This is usually caused by excessive heat and sun exposure, such as during summer in certain parts of the world.
And so there goes some of the real answers to the big questions on biotechnology on the African continent. And this conversation can only go on. Thank you very much for watching Kikao for this week. My name is Joe Ageyo.